You know that feeling like there are two different people living inside your head? There's the one who's always reacting, kind of fearful, stuck in survival mode, and then there's this other one, the one who's calm, wise, and just seems to know exactly what to do. Well, today we're going to unpack that. We're diving into this powerful idea that explains this inner split, and it all comes from one absolutely incredible life-changing story. So let's get right into it. So, I want you to just imagine for a second a moment so intense, so completely life-altering that it changes everything about who you are. The story we're exploring today, well, it kicks off with exactly that. And believe me, this isn't just some poetic phrase. It's the beginning of a journey from a literal near-death moment to a massive revelation about who we really are. So you're probably asking, what on earth happened? All right, so this whole powerful idea we're digging into today, it wasn't born in a library or a classroom. It came from a single, absolutely terrifying event. A moment where the fight for life pushed someone right to the edge and then, out of nowhere, revealed a totally different part of themselves. Okay, really try to picture this. You're trapped. You're under the crushing weight of a waterfall. The sound is just this deafening roar, and the force is just relentless. Every single instinct in your body is screaming at you. Fight, claw your way up. It's the ultimate survival nightmare, pushing your body and your will to the absolute breaking point. So after fighting with every last ounce of strength he has, he just hits a wall. Complete, utter exhaustion. And this, right here, is the turning point. He just lets go. Completely. This isn't some clever plan. It's pure despair. The fight is done. He just surrenders to what he thinks is the end. And this is where it gets absolutely wild. The second he gives up the fight, everything changes. The chaos in his head, gone. A deep silence just takes over. And right in the middle of that silence comes this perfect crystal clarity. All of a sudden, he knows exactly what to do. He knows how to move his body to find a little pocket of air and actually survive. Think about that. The part of him that was fighting had zero clue. But this other part, it knew all along. Okay, so what in the world just happened there? That crazy near-death experience, it pulled back the curtain on a fundamental truth about our inner lives. The huge insight from this story is that it wasn't just one self flailing around in that waterfall. Nope. There were two totally distinct consciousnesses at play. First up, we've got what's called the natural soul, or the nefesh hatavit. The easiest way to think about this is as our everyday personality. Or even better, the surviving child. This was the self that was panicking in the water, the one fighting, struggling, and then finally giving up in despair. It runs on pure instinct, raw emotion, that deep primal drive to survive no matter what. But then, there's the divine soul, or the neshama. This is the calm, quiet observer that was just watching the whole time. This is our true I. It doesn't get swept up in the drama of survival, it just knows. This was the consciousness that stepped in the very moment that surviving child finally surrendered. So let's put these two side by side, right? You've got the natural soul, that's the surviving child running on chaos and struggle. Then you have the divine soul, our true I, the source of all that calm and clarity. And here's the biggest takeaway. It's all about who's in the driver's seat. That struggling natural soul, it's not supposed to be in charge. It's meant to be guided by the deep wisdom of the divine soul. Okay, that's great. We've got these two selves, but now what? How do we actually go from being bossed around by the chaotic survivor to being led by that calm, knowing self? How does this whole transformation thing actually work in real life? Preferably without having to almost drown in a waterfall. Well, the whole transformation, it's really about shifting your identity. It's a process. Step one is just seeing it, just noticing that surviving child when it shows up, when you're feeling angry or scared or anxious. But here's the really critical part, step two. You have to consciously stop identifying with it. You stop believing that you are the anger, that you are the fear. Instead, you realize you're the one who's watching the anger. And that tiny little shift in perspective, it creates just enough space for that quiet, wise, divine soul to step up. And once it does, the survivor self kind of chills out, it stops fighting, and becomes a messenger for that deeper wisdom. And listen, this is maybe the most important point of all. This is not about fixing yourself. It's not a war against your emotions or your ego. It's about a deep, fundamental shift in who you think you are. You just stop saying, I am the part of you that struggles, and you start identifying with the part of you that just calmly watches.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that this inner shift, it doesn't just change how you feel inside. The idea is that this internal work literally changes how you see reality itself. It's kind of like tuning a radio to a different frequency. Suddenly, you start picking up on these hidden layers of the world that were there the whole time. You just couldn't perceive them before.
So to get our heads around this, we can borrow a few ideas from Kabbalistic thought. Think of reality like an onion, okay? But instead of layers of onion, it's layers of divine light. The outer layer, the one we can all see and touch, is called Memele. That's the divine energy that's inside everything, making a tree or a person a person. Then there's a deeper layer called Sovev, which is a light that surrounds all of creation, a kind of transcendent energy we usually don't notice. And then at the very, very core, you have Atzmut, the divine essence itself, the source of everything. And here is the amazing connection. When we do that inner work, when we start identifying with our divine soul, we are basically tuning our own consciousness to start perceiving these deeper, hidden layers of reality. Our personal transformation literally makes the spiritual nature of the world more visible, not just to us, but through us. Now, to make this state of being a little less abstract, the source material gives us a really powerful archetype to look at. Moses. And we're not talking about Moses just as a historical figure, but as the perfect example of someone living completely and totally from their divine soul. And this brings up a really interesting paradox, right? The text describes Moses as being incredibly rich, but at the same time, he feels the pain and suffering of his people so deeply, it's like it's his own. So how does that work? How can you be totally whole and complete while also being so plugged in to all the brokenness in the world? Well, the answer is that his richness isn't something he has. It's not about possessions. It's about who he is. He is rich in his very essence. Why? Because his entire identity is anchored in that divine soul, and that soul is plugged directly into an infinite, unending source. And that state of being, that's the ultimate goal of this whole transformation we've been talking about. It's a sense of inner wholeness so deep and so complete that you can feel the pain of the world, you can give of yourself endlessly, and yet you never ever feel drained or diminished. Because you're not running on your own battery. You're drawing from an infinite source. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds amazing, but that's for spiritual giants, right? For Moses. But the source material makes this one final, crucial point that brings this whole massive concept right back down to earth for you and for me. And this honestly might be the most empowering takeaway from this whole thing. This potential for wholeness, this ability to live from that deep, calm, divine soul, it's not for a select few. It is a universal inheritance. The idea is that inside every single one of us, right now, there is a spark of Moses, a little seed of this exact same ultimate potential. And so that leaves us with one last thought. This whole thing, it's not just some cool, fascinating theory. It's really an invitation. If that calm, wise, infinitely resourceful self is already inside you, then the only question left is, how are you going to let it shine?